I think everyone who plays video games has heard about Palworld, and within the first 5 days, Palworld has sold over 7 million copies, which I think is just insane. But the controversy between Palworld and Pokemon is very well known, and we are not going to talk about that today, but I am wanting to go through the entire Paldeck or Pokedex, and I want to look at it from the lens that I usually do when I look at a Pokemon Fakemon region. Obviously, I'm going to compare some to Pokemon because straight just look like Pokemon, but there are a lot of really unique and interesting ones too. So let's check out the Palpagos Islands region. Now, there isn't a starter pal that you can choose from in Palworld, but there are 3 pals that you will see immediately when you get into the region. The first one being Lambor, which obviously looks a lot like a Wooloo, but it is bipedal, which I think is kind of cool. The second one is Cativa, obviously based on a cat, but he does have a bit of a mean disposition there, and his whiskers are quite thick, which I think is kind of interesting, and has a big flick of hair on the top of its head as well. And then the third one is Chickapee, which was actually my first Lucky that I caught Lucky being kind of like a shiny. Obviously just looking like a chicken, but it's kind of ball-shaped as well, but very plain looking, I think. And all 3 of those are all neutral or normal types. Next is Liftmug, which is like a grass squirrel, so I actually don't mind this at all. It has got a very large tail, but the interesting red gem and like almost like the berries that it's got on its chest as well, I do like a lot, and it matches the eye coloring a lot. Foxparks is next, which is kind of like a Vulpix, being it's like a fire fox kind of look, but the big flame on its tail is really nice. And again, kind of like Liftmug, the tail is taking up like half of its body. Then the next one, which I do have to be careful how to pronounce it, it is Fuak, and this is actually based on a platypus, but it's got some interesting non-platypus features, like those big spiky ears and like the spiky whiskers, I guess. Sparkit is, I guess, like the Pika clone of the region, and there's an electric type. The tail is very much like a Raichu tail, I think, but it's actually based on a cat. Tansy, I think, is very cute. It's like a grass monkey pal. Tansy, kind of like Tarzan as well, so I like the tie there being like from the jungle. Ruby, I don't know if I like Ruby or not. I feel like the bow tie is very tokenistic, like they're just adding it just to give it something. Penguin is pretty cute. I think obviously just a basic penguin, but does have a red gem on its chest, but I think compared to Penking, I think Penking is much more interesting. I do love this. It's like a captain. It's got the hat and it's got like a coat and it's got more gems, but also keep in mind that pals do not evolve, so no connection there between those two. They don't evolve. Joltog, I think, is quite cute. It's just obviously like a hedgehog, but it's got some electric sparks or some electric spines on its back there, but it actually has a different form. A few Pokemon have different forms. We've got our electric version, and then we have Joltog Crest, which is like our ice version, and obviously ice shards are making up the spikes there. Next, Gumos. I love that it's got such a derpy expression on it. Obviously eyes like a Ditto, I would say, just plain old dots, but the tongue sticking out is very nice. Even just looking like, you know, amount of dirt with some leaves coming out, I think is a nice look. Next, Vixie is obviously based on a fox. It obviously looks very feminine. I think it's because of the eyes, but I'm not the biggest fan of this. I feel it's kind of plain in a way. Hoocrates, I absolutely love the name for Hoocrates, obviously combining Hoot like from an owl and Socrates as well, but it does look like an owl with almost like a witch's hat as well. I do absolutely love Teafant though. Having a little elephant that shapes like a teapot is so cute, and having the end of the teapot as the trunk. Depresso is such an interesting name, and obviously the expression matches it very, very well. And I didn't notice this while playing the game, but looking at here, it looks like it's got a horn on its head, but that's actually made of fur. Cremus, I actually don't mind. It looks a lot like a shiny Eevee, but it's kind of like a fox crossed with a sheep, so obviously very, very woolly, and the face definitely does look like an Eevee. Next, Daydream might be one of my favorite pals. I absolutely love the look of Daydream. Kind of looks like a sheep. You can see it's got little horns there as well, but that massive hair kind of looking like a galaxy or a night sky. I really, really like that. Rushore is obviously looking like a boar. Not too much going on there. It's not too exciting. Nox is next, and again, it kind of looks like an Eevee. I think there's a lot of fox and dog kind of Pokemon as we're going to see throughout here, but it is interesting because it's got like almost like a regal kind of robe and a gem. It almost makes it feel like it's part royalty. Next, Fuddler looks almost like a bunny face, but then the rest of it's kind of like a mole. It's got some big claws there for digging, and it's almost got like a bit of a chest of, I'm not sure what that is, maybe some dirt or some mud or something like that. Killamara is based on a squid, but almost looks like it's wearing a hat or something as well. You wouldn't think of a squid having ears, so I'm not sure if they're meant to be ears or if it is some kind of hat. Mao, I really like. because it's based on like an Egyptian cat, and we can see like the pattern, the almost like the ank on the end of its tail as well. Definitely looks very Egyptian, just the look of a black cat. Mal also has a crisp version as well, so this is now an ice type rather than a dark type, and you can see obviously the coloring is the main thing that has changed there. Celeray, I'm actually not the biggest fan of Celeray. I don't know, I think it's the little legs that it's got. It almost makes it look like it's flying. It's like a weird kind of bird rather than like a manta ray. Diehal I think is okay. I do like the coloring on it, but again, I feel like there's nothing that stands out about it. I think like it looks cool, but almost needs something extra to it. Toko though, I do absolutely love. I can see that it's got like a bit of a toucan beak, but obviously the eye and the expression is more like a dodo. I love the mohawk. I love the coloring, kind of like Xatu coloring, I guess, in a way, but obviously the body and the face is very much not like a Xatu. Floppy, I'm not quite sure about. It almost looks like 4 different artists all came together to try to create something. They all had different ideas. Like it's got a flower on its head. It's got really big ears, but then has 4 ears on top. It's got like 4 ears. Mozarina, I think, is very interesting. Obviously, it just looks like a cow, but it's got horns like a bull, and it's got almost vampire teeth as well. So I feel that if you saw this at nighttime, maybe it acts a little bit differently. It doesn't look so placid. Bristler is next, and obviously there's like word bristle in its name because it looks very, very thorny. You can see it's got thorns on almost like that dress, but on its hair as well. It's got an angry expression. Gobfin, I am a big fan of. I think combining a goblin with a shark is a very, very cool idea. I think this looks really good. And as you can see, it looks quite small and stout, massive hands, and obviously massive fin as well. And this also has an Ignis form, which is now a fire type. Hangyu is next, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of these pals are very heavily influenced by an animal, but Hangyu doesn't look like it's based on an animal. Maybe I think it's more like a rope or something like that. Mosander I really like. Obviously it is based on a panda, and as you can see, it's very, very green. It's a grass type, of course. Has a massive leaf on its head like a chikorita, and it also has a different form as well, which is more of an electric type. It's called Mosander Lux, but I do like that they changed the leaf on its head to like an electric mohawk, kind of like a Toxtricity, I would say, but having all the yellow coloring, almost like little yellow lightning bolts on its chest as well, is quite different. And usually when there's a different form in Palworld, like just the color changes. Next is Woolly Pop, which looks, if you think about how alchemy is obviously made of candy and desserts and looks very sweet, Woolly Pop is the same. This is a sheep or maybe like a ram, but we can see that it's completely covered in cotton candy and desserts, and like the little ram horns that it's got look like a hearted sweet as well. Caprity, another one that's kind of like a ram, obviously has very big horns, and then has, I'm not sure if it's a hump or a tail, but has a massive bush full of berries on the end of it there as well. Melpaca, I think, is a very interesting animal. Obviously it's based on an alpaca, but it looks like it's wearing thigh-high boots. I am a big fan of Ike the deer though, probably because it looks a lot like a Xerneas, and I do love Xerneas, but those massive antlers, like little light blue tips on the end of it, look very nice, and just the coloring of the purple and the blues together very much work together. Nightwing, I feel, almost looks like the 3rd evolution of a Route 1 Pokemon. Like, we've seen lots of Pokemon that do kind of look like this. Almost like a big hawk or a big eagle, I think. Ribbunny, I'm not quite sure about. Definitely has inspirations from Sylveon, surely, with like the bow and like the ribbons coming off it, even the coloring on it. And then Incineram, I think, looks pretty cool. It is a hyena-based Pokemon, but definitely looks a lot like a Houndoom, almost crossed with a Midnight Lycanroc, if you look at the coloring and the horns and stuff like that. Cinnamoth, I think, is very cute. I actually really like the name Cinnamoth, combining cinnamon and moth together, and I think this looks very cute, and the design together looks really nice. It's kind of like a sunset kind of vibe in its coloring. Arsox, I'm a big fan of. It actually looks a lot like the fire starter from Pokemon Sage, which is a Fakemon region I've covered before. Very, very similar, and I did love that starter. Dumud, I think, is very interesting. It definitely gives me like Clodsire crossed with Sobble vibes. That fin on the top of his head is definitely like a Sobble fin, but looks very, very derpy like a Clodsire. And then Cognito, I really like. I think having that like plague mask kind of look definitely fits the vibe of this, and it's got like a big witch's hat again. Leafspunk, I don't mind actually. It's a lizard with lots of spiky yellow parts on it. Again, we've got like a yellow mohawk, again like a Toxtricity, but it looks like it's got a hoodie on covering its head. But I do really like the coloring in the Ignis version. I think the red hoodie and spikes on its head look really, really nice. Loop Moon is next, which is kind of interesting. It almost looks like some kind of demon or something from Nightmares. You can see it's got big claws and massive ears, but it does have a very massive crescent moon kind of horn. Gale Claw is a massive hawk or eagle kind of one. We had a similar one before in is it Nightwing? This one looks a little bit different though. This almost looks like an American bald eagle, I would say, especially in the coloring and the face there. Robin Quill, I think, mate, this is way too close to Decidueye. The coloring, even like the coloring with the green and the brown, but even like obviously based on Robin Hood, very, very similar vibes as well as coloring as well as design. Look, way too close in my opinion. Gororat is kind of an interesting one. It's got rat in the name and kind of looks like a rat, but it's actually more so based on an ape. And the face actually reminds me of the kid in Jumanji when he turns into a monkey. Beeguard is a bee Pokemon, but doesn't really look like a bee. But this is actually a guardian Pokemon for the queen bee Pokemon, which is Eliza Bee. So this is definitely looking like a queen now. It's got like a massive staff and almost looks like it's got like a dress as well. So definitely look a bit more regal. Grintail I really like. It looks exactly like a Cheshire cat. The eyes and the mouth especially, the coloring as well, definitely looks like a Cheshire cat. And as you can see, its tail has been split into two as well. Sweet, I think it's very interesting. I love this. It says it is a curious floof and something that's very similar. I remember I said that there's no evolutions, but we also have Sweeper, which looks obviously very similar. But now we've got a bit of a mouth and it's a little bit bigger. But we've gone from the Curious Floof into the Majesty of Fuzz. Chillet, I'm a big fan of. It is an Ice and Dragon type, actually. But it's like an ice ferret or weasel or some kind of long rodent. Univolt is like a unicorn, obviously, but it's like an electric version. That horn on its head is massive, but very spiky mane, spiky tail. Even on the chest, it's got some spiky fur as well. Foxicle next. We have another Fox Pal. We have lots, as I said. This one I really like. Obviously, getting a Lola Ninetail vibes there because it's like an ice type. Pyron is a horse pal next. Got massive horns on its head there. A massive like blazing mane. And we can see it's got like some fire coming off. Almost like a big mustache as well. Reindrix next. We've got another deer pal. You can definitely see the artists definitely have their favorite animals like their deers and their foxes that they like to use. So this one is more of an ice type now. You can definitely see that within the coloring. And Rayhound next, which is another dog. And we can see it's an electric type as well. But that tail again looking like a Raichu tail, and we had a pal before. Oh, Kitson looks really nice. I liked that a lot. The coloring on, like that light blue coloring, I really, really enjoy. And the flames around its head is very interesting. It almost looks like an ice and fire type, but it is just a pure fire type. Dazzy is kind of interesting. It almost looks like an imp or something like that, but it's like floating on a cloud, kind of like Lakitu from Mario. Lunaris, okay, this definitely looks very feminine, very humanoid, and it's actually an extraterrestrial, so it's actually an alien, but massive like hair. Is that hair coming down? Dinossum, I think, is a very interesting kind of look. Dinossum, it definitely has like a lilican kind of flower on its head. I feel it looks a lot like a Gudra as well. I think it's just like the body and the stance of it, but obviously like a grass version. Surfing though, I definitely do like. I think this looks really cool. Definitely looks like a plesiosaur. As you can see, it's like massive fins, massive body. And Surfing actually has a terraform, which is a little bit different. Obviously, the coloring is different. The spikes on its back have become much bigger and kind of like rocky now. Moraith is kind of interesting. Looks like it's got a big dark lion's mane around it, but you can see like the big wings on it, almost like a big candle flame or something on its head. Obviously just the green eyes and not even like a mouth. Dig Toys I absolutely love. This is definitely one of my favorites. The massive spiky shell, almost like a Bowser shell, but as you can see it's on all fours, which I like as well. But the big face or head. Tombat kind of combines a cat with maybe a bat together, or like a cat wearing a cape or something like that. Massive claws. You can see that sort of spectral ghostly purple smoke coming off it as well. Lavender. All right, now every time I do a Fakemon region video, people always comment on the waifu kind of Pokemon or the waifu kind of pal. Here it is, guys. And just so you know, this is number 69 on the Paldeck, so bring on the comments. Flambell is kind of cute. I don't mind that, actually. It's kind of like, I guess it's maybe a little candle, but kind of like a humanoid candle. It does have that flame on its head, and its hair almost looks like dripping wax coming down over its head and body there. Vanworm looks very cool, though. This looks like a dragon combined with a hawk, maybe. Definitely kind of giving me Vettel vibes, though. Next, Bushy. Okay, that looks kind of cool. Almost looks like a samurai warrior or something like that. Definitely has a big sword on it, and obviously has that massive hat as well. Beacon, again, we've got another hawk or eagle kind of Pokemon. This one definitely looks more like a deserty kind of color, but it is an electric type. Ragnarhawk, I think, might be my favorite name out of all of them. I think having like a Ragnarok theme in the name perfectly works for a hawk here. Ragnarhawk, I absolutely love it. Catris next is a dark type. It's like a cat, but almost kind of looks like a magician or a witch as well. Obviously has that big purple witch's hat, and you can see the ears coming through that, which looks quite nice. And this one's kind of different. This one looks like a cat, but definitely looks like a Delphox, doesn't it? It's like a fire themed magician kind of mon. Oh wow, Vadash looks a lot like a Cinderace. Wow, I didn't realize how similar. It's like a green Cinderace. Like the long ears, the stance, like the thin body, even like these spiky parts off the legs. I think Cinderace has that. The hands as well. This is too similar. Violet's kind of interesting though. It almost looks like a bug or a mantis maybe coming out of a violet flower. Sibyllex is kind of interesting though. This is a moth and it's an ice type. It looks like that white fluffy moth. Definitely has that kind of vibe going on, but like the big parts on its head definitely looks like another hat. Lots of pals look like they have like a witch's hat or a wide brim hat of some kind. Oh, an Alpha Dragon. This is kind of cute, actually. This is a dragon type, and this is definitely giving me Dragonite vibes in that it's just like a gentle giant, I think. Dragonite, you know, it's got that sort of pudgy tummy. It's got some wings. Kelpsie next is a water type, and I think it just looks like a seal. Not too much going on here. It does have an Ignis form, and kind of like what I was saying before, sometimes in a different form, it's literally the same thing, just a different color. Next to Zootrope though, this one looks kind of interesting. I'm definitely getting Milotic vibes here, but also looks something very, very big. It has like big tentacles, I think they are, coming out of it as well, but it definitely looks more like a serpent, a sea serpent of some kind. Cryolinx, that's kind of interesting actually. This almost looks like a lynx, almost combined with a cactus. Very spiky, very prickly, but those long arms with giant hands and claws looks very, very cool. I like that a lot. That's interesting. Relaxers. Okay, I think this is the Palworld version of a Snorlax. This is like a big dinosaur, but I think it just is something that likes to lounge around. This also has a Lux version though. This one's kind of cool. Obviously it's bright yellow, but it has like, again, a big yellow electric mohawk. We've seen that a couple of times now. Bronze Cherry's interesting. Obviously again, looks like a dinosaur here, but almost kind of looks like a Meganium. I think it's because of the big flower, grassy kind of look. Petalia's not too bad. That's kind of interesting. Very humanoid again, but it's got obviously some big fur hair, something coming off of its head. Almost kind of like to make a star shape on its head, I think. Reptyro. Ooh, that looks really cool though. We're getting to a bunch of pals now that I've never seen because I'm still early in the game. This looks fantastic. I love this. It's like a quadrupedal lizard. It's got massive horns on its head. You can see it's like got a blaze of fire on its back as well. This looks really cool. I like this one a lot. King Parker. Oh my god, I love that. Obviously, looks like the king of the alpacas. Has like a crown. It's almost like a trident on his head actually. Mammorest. All right, so if you've played Palworld, you know Mammorest is a very strong pal that is very early on in the game. You can see it walking around. Since I first saw it, I absolutely loved it. Having like a massive grassy mossy mammoth, I think looks fantastic. I really, really like this pal. Wumpo is kind of interesting. Okay, I'm not sure. This is kind of like, it's got like big cat ears, but I think it's meant to be mostly like based on like a yeti or abominable snowman of some kind. Looks very, very fuzzy. It also has another form in Wumpo Botan, which is like the grass version. You can see that flower in its hair as well. Warsex, I think this looks incredible. This has got to be one of my favorites. Obviously like a massive stag beetle, so obviously like a Heracross as well, but it's got the wings coming out. It's got a massive horn plus the two mandibles as well coming out. The coloring, like the little yellow parts on the black, looks very, very nice. Fanglope though, I feel it's too close to Cobalion for my liking. It's like a thinner version of Cobalion, but definitely in the coloring and the horns and stuff like that. Foulbat, okay, this is kind of like a big, is it meant to be a bat? I'm not sure. Maybe it's more like the Dracula side. Like it looks like it's got a big cape rather than wings over there, but again, looking kind of humanoid. Has like a big black horn on its head though. Wyvern though, oh my god, we've got like another friendly kind of dragon, so that looks very cute. It's like almost like a Reshiram, I would say. It's kind of like a fluffy white dragon. But reading the wiki here, it says that sleeping while cuddling a Wyvern is said to be a heavenly experience. Lasermutt though is a very different vibe. I absolutely love this. This looks so cool. Like the molten rock claws, the molten rock horns that it's got. This looks very cool. Heels of fur. Okay, we've got another, I guess, hawk or eagle kind of pal here. Definitely like vibes of like, you know, a lot of the models seem kind of similar with some small changes to it. So I don't know. It's kind of getting a bit too repetitive now, I feel. Astagon looks kind of cool though. This looks almost like a Godzilla or something like that of some kind, but has massive red and black wings coming out of it. We're definitely getting on the side of the deck now where we're getting into like the pseudo legendaries and sort of the unique ones that are coming out. Very, very interesting look here. They're not so plain and boring like we saw at the very start of the Paldeck. Menacing. Oh my god, I think that is a fantastic name, having Sting and Menacing together. Obviously looking like a scorpion with a massive knife or blade on the end of the tail there. That is very, very cool. Obviously we've got the massive pincers as well. And then Anubis, I think is way too humanoid. It almost looks like a Lucario. It's almost like a more humanoid version of Lucario, but obviously Egyptian themed here with a name like Anubis. Jormuntide next, which I think is a fantastic name. Obviously coming from Jormungandr. And you can see it's like a big sea serpent. It's got some big fins and almost has like a bit of a mohawk design going on there as well. But just the face looking like a sea serpent looks really cool. And it has a different form in its Ignis form, which is now a dragon fire type compared to a dragon and water type. Then Suzaku is next, which is a fire type. It does kind of look like a dragon though. It definitely looks like it's got like a dragon kind of body and wings and face there. But it's very interesting. It's mostly wings. It doesn't, I don't know what those legs are. It's almost got like a little tripod thing coming out. It's like a claw machine coming to grab a toy. I don't know. Grisbold. Okay, this is like the first major boss, I think. So massive yellow fuzzy bear thing with massive claws. Lylene now. We've got a couple that are kind of themed similarly in a way. Again, kind of like a lily. Again, we've got flowers in their hair there and obviously looking very, very humanoid. And then Lylene has another form, the Lylene Noct form. And it obviously looks like a nighttime version. The coloring is very nice, actually. I do like the coloring. Phalaris, another one. Okay, I'm kind of getting, to be honest, I'm kind of getting over the eagle and hawk references, so I'm going to skip past that. Ozek is next. It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what this is based on, to be honest. It's almost kind of like a guard chomp. I'm not sure. It's definitely got some wings out there, though. Shadowbeak now again. Oh, this is actually kind of, this is more so based on a griffin, actually, I can see. So you can see it's got those massive wings on it. Definitely like a griffin kind of head there. Reading the wiki here, it says that it's based on a griffin. Oh, Palladius. Ooh, I really like this. This is really nice. That looks really cool. This is kind of like, I guess, based on a centaur. You see it's holding a sword and a shield as well. Almost got like that Valkyrie kind of helmet as well with the wings coming out. And then we have Necromus, which is kind of like a similar vibe. This again looks like it's based on a centaur, but instead of a sword and shield, it's got massive red lances. Also like an ancient Greek Roman helmet instead, which I think is very interesting. Frostallion next is, I'm not sure if they have legendary pals. It says it's a legendary steed of ice. And apparently it has a passive skill called legendary, so maybe this is a legendary pal. Frostallion here is an ice type, and you can see it's obviously based on a horse, but has massive wings as well. And then we have another version of Frostallion Noct, again looking like a nighttime version compared to obviously like our daytime version. It's a dark instead of an ice type. And then our last one is Jetragon, which I think definitely looks a lot like a Salamence. I don't think anyone could debate that. Pure dragon type one. You see this in a lot of trailers and stuff as well. Okay, choosing my favorites for this, I'm gonna have to say Daydream, Digtoise, Reptyro, Warsex, and Blazermutt are gonna have to be my favorites. Let me know down in the comments what your favorites were as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video and check out some of my other Fakemon videos as well. Cheers.